Safety and Justice Committee to order. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for June? Got Linda as a first and Rob as a second. Thank you. Go ahead and vote. All right, ayes have it. Continue. Moving on to our informational items, we have the ETSB to start. Hi, Jody.
Hello, everyone. Just a quick update on the ETSB. The two dispatch centers, Peoria and Bartonville, are running really well with no issues at this time. Stark County is 99.9% complete. Our grants have ended on June 30th, so I'm in the process of finishing up the grants, and everything's running well there as well. Any questions?
How are you having any issues with staffing, or how are your staffing levels?
The staffing is doing a little bit better than it was. We still aren't up to our capacity that we had when I first started 5 years ago, but it's kind of a struggle. The Bartonville Dispatch Center has been short one dispatcher for a couple of years. We did have another girl hired, but she didn't work out, so they had to let her go, and they're working on trying to get another one in. So the four of them had been working a lot of extra overtime. So,
Okay.
and the Peoria Dispatch Center is running really, really pretty good. We've hired about 6 new dispatchers, so they're in training, and that's going pretty well.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Oh, yes, Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On hiring, is it because we're not paying enough, or is it because the job skill set, we're not getting people that are interested in doing that job?
I don't really do the hiring part. That's more Brandon Blaney, the ECC manager at the ECC office. But my personal opinion, I feel, is that's a very hard job to do. It takes a very special person to do that. And I think once they get there and they get involved in everything that's happening and what goes on, I think they soon figure out that's really not what they signed up for.
That's what I was kind of wondering. It seemed like it takes somebody with a special skill set that can handle stress and keep calm. I won't be applying, so don't worry.
All right. Any other questions? As always, if you haven't been out there, they have an open invitation to board members to come see their operations, and it's a pretty incredible setup they have. So if you haven't been out there, I definitely suggest it. If there's no other questions, thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to Public Defender Lowe.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
As usual, it's good to see everybody again. So let's see, in Public Defender news, I am pleased to announce that I have been appointed to the OSAD Board of Commissioners. So OSAD, O-S-A-D, stands for the Office of the State Appellate Defender. And somehow I was appointed as one of the 9 commissioners. Actually, I highly suspect it was on the recommendation of Chief Judge Gorman, but this was my suspicion. In any event, so I'm the representative of the 4th Appellate District. The 4th Appellate District consists of 41 counties, and so I was chosen as the representative from the 4th. And I'm very honored and humbled by that, and I think that's just a wonderful thing I wanted to share because I think it reflects very highly also on Peoria County that I was selected as the representative for that Board of Commissioners. And essentially, we oversee the operations and the budget of the State Appellate Defender's Office. I think last year's budget was approximately $40 million. We meet twice a year for about 1 hour. So it's really not going to cut into my duties as the Chief Public Defender of Peoria County. Will have minimal to no impact whatsoever. All right, on to staffing. So overall, the number of attorneys in our office since last quarter decreased 1 from 18 down to 17. We lost one of our independent contractors, Sam Snyder. He was doing the contract for the PTRs, the petitions to revoke probation, in the DUI courtroom. Our contractor levels then went from 12 down to 11. We wish Sam the best of luck in all his endeavors over in Tazewell County. As far as our non-attorney personnel, that remains unchanged. We have 4 people who are not attorneys employed with our office. They're all full-time. Our office manager, our paralegal, receptionist, and client advocate. As you recall, that's pretty much grant support, mainly grant supported position, but she's been doing some wonderful things for our clients. We're really happy to have her. Total personnel overall 21 individuals. The exciting news, we have some new hires. So we have secured commitments from 3 law school graduates. Right? It's actually somewhat of I guess you'd call it maybe a watershed moment for the public defender's office, because I don't think we've ever had a commitment from a law school graduate. I think we've always had to get experienced attorneys. We've always tried to find people to fulfill a contract of the people we've hired full time. They've all had experience. We've never had an entry level person. So to be in a position where we have 3 is quite extraordinary for us. And all 3 are taking the bar exam, I think right now, today and tomorrow is the bar exam. It's a 2-day exam. Fingers crossed. One of those 3 is Randy Kurth, our summer intern this summer and last. I'm sure I've talked about her before. The 2 others are graduates of the University of Illinois Law School, and all 3 are slated to join us next month, coming up here very soon. In fact, as early as next week, I believe at least one of them is coming. Of course, they're not licensed attorneys at this point. You would be joining our office and functioning as temporary employees until the time they pass the bar. Unless, once again, fingers crossed, knock on wood for that to happen. In the interim, they would be called 711 licensees. That refers to Supreme Court Rule 711, which allows certain law students and law school graduates to practice under the supervision of an attorney. In this case, all 3 would be practicing under the umbrella of my law license. So that's exciting news for us, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that all 3 will pass the bar and be able to join us full time in their capacity as new attorneys. We'll move on to our caseload statistics. Nothing much has changed there. As I've said before, really looking at these figures, it remains relatively constant from quarter to quarter. The current report that we're talking about, my report, is for the second quarter of 2025, but I'd like to reiterate that the caseload numbers are from the prior quarter, and we do that because caseload figures become more accurate over time. So I report the previous quarter. It's delayed essentially 3 months. If I were to do this quarter for this report, we'd have a large portion of June that has no information whatsoever regarding the attorney, because you'd have a chunk of cases that were just sitting there that have been filed, but we haven't actually reached an arraignment point or a status in court where an attorney would be appointed to represent somebody, or a judge would ask a person, hey, what are you doing for counsel? Do you need the public defender, or do you have private counsel? So it would omit a large chunk, particularly of that last month. I don't like doing that. So we delay it 3 months, and that's why I do that. I like to explain that because it's a little confusing. I write the report and it says second quarter of 2025, and yet I start talking about statistics from Q1 of 2025. I imagine perhaps somebody, maybe a member of the public, just reading that would think, oh, maybe that's a typo. In any event, so we look back at the first quarter of 2025. So we're talking about January, February, and March of this year. We look at the felony numbers and the cases filed in the felony courtroom. 264 were filed. Now we have to get to a subtotal to have a meaningful statistic, and we do that because there's a percentage of cases that don't go anywhere. They are essentially stagnant cases. They are filed. And when I was curious about this, thinking, like, why don't these cases go anywhere? And I looked at a number of these cases. The majority of those cases are filed but dismissed. So the state's attorney's office is filing them, sometimes on the very same day, dismissing them. I'm sure they have various reasons for doing that. Perhaps they want to refile it and under some other subsection of the statute. Perhaps there was a victim who contacted them and said, I recant my story. I don't know. We'd have to ask the state's attorney about their reasons for doing that. Nonetheless, it is a significant number of cases that are just dismissed and don't go anywhere. So we never get to the stage of asking somebody, what are you going to do for an attorney? Another smaller percentage of that subtotal, the cases that are not moving forward, the smaller percentage is of those cases where an indictment may be handed down or an information filed, and that person has not been arrested, is not in custody, is simply at large. The case will sit there. And if there's an indictment warrant that's been issued, a judge looks at the charge and says, okay, we'll issue an indictment or a grand jury pursuant to, after the grand jury proceedings, the indictment is issued and they issue a warrant. Well, it could be some time before that person's picked up. And therefore, we have a number of cases that are filed that we don't have any action on yet. Just not active cases. All right, so we come to, in the first quarter, there were 264 filed. The cases that were moving forward, the active cases for that period, 194. So we have a large chunk of cases, a significant subtotal, a reduction in that of the cases, and that actually is quite a large percentage. Okay, usually it's not that high. Usually it's around 15%. For whatever reason, quarter one had quite a few cases that are just sitting there. In any event, 194 moving forward. Of those 194, the public defender's office was appointed in 163 of those cases, and that represents 84% of all cases moving forward. Misdemeanor, 296 cases were filed in that quarter. Of those, 232 are active or moving forward, and of those 232, the public defender's office was appointed in 214 of those cases. That represents 92.2% of the cases. We contrast that to DUI, and I always like to include DUI because it's the courtroom and the category of case that we have the least amount of participation in. To DUIs, people tend to hire private counsel a lot more frequently than any other category of case, and it's reflected in the percentage and in the numbers of times that we're appointed. You can see that time and time again. And in the first quarter of 2025, 113 DUI cases were filed. Of those, 108 I would consider active or moving forward. The public defender's office was appointed only 48 times out of those 108. That's less than 50% of the time. Juvenile delinquency, a lot different story though. It's very rare to see private counsel in there, and they really don't have juveniles representing themselves all that often. In fact, I think the statute says there has to be an attorney that is appointed for juveniles. In that quarter, 89 cases were filed, 79 cases moving forward. The public defender's office was appointed in 76 days, so only 3 private attorneys in that quarter. We were appointed at 96.2% of the time. You look at all 5 categories that I have in my report: the felony, the misdemeanor, the DUI, juvenile delinquency, and domestic violence. 810 cases filed, 654 moving forward. PD's office appointed 539 times. And so those 5 categories combined, 82.4% of the time we were appointed. If you recall, last quarter, I talked about some new tracking that I was doing in the juvenile abuse and neglect court. That's I like to also call it DCFS court. That's where parents are accused of abusing and or neglecting their children, people in their care. And it was a little bit of a struggle figuring out how to do it. And I worked closely with IT to come up with a method of doing that, because we can't do it just based on cases, individual cases, because each case you have multiple respondents typically, because you have at least one mother and usually one father, if not more than one father. So you could have one case, and yet you'll have three respondents, and therefore require three separate attorneys in that one case. Therefore, we developed a system whereby we look at the number of respondents who appear in these cases, and then look at the number of respondents that our office was appointed to, and the percentage of the time. So for the first quarter of 2025, we had 53 juvenile abuse and neglect cases filed. And in those 53 cases, you have 102 named respondents. So there's the example right there. So typically you have, on average, at least 2 respondents per case. Of those respondents, we get to the subtotal of 79. That's the number of active respondents. You get a dropout there because a number of times they'll send out notices. You'll have 4 people listed as respondent. Notices will go out. They receive notice, but then they never appear in court. Whatever reason, they're not interested, unfortunately, in the status of that case or the minor children. And therefore, we just move on without them. They've essentially forfeited or waived their right to participate in the proceedings if they don't appear by a certain time. So of those 102 total respondents that were named, you have 79 who have responded, who are active respondents, and of those 79, the Public Defender's Office was appointed to represent 76 of them, or 96.2% of the active respondents in those cases. Detention hearings, again, a familiar story. The Public Defender's Office handles nearly 100% of those cases. Through June of 2025, there have been 330 detention hearings held or conducted in Peoria County. Of those, our office handled 326. That represents 98.8% of all detention hearings. In fact, private counsel appeared on only 4 detention hearings throughout those 6 months. And again, last time I had told everybody that I was keeping track of the pending first-degree murder cases. I'm still doing that. I think that's an important category to note, and it's certainly one that I think the board would be and should be interested in. First-degree murder cases, as of July 18th of this year, we have pending in Peoria County 42 active first-degree murder cases. Of those, at the time that I did this on the 18th, there were 40 that were moving forward with an attorney. But only 2 of those were postponed, set for an arraignment, so we didn't know the attorney status. And of the 40, the Public Defender's Office has been appointed in 30 of the cases, which is 75%. I know there are 2 more cases set for an arraignment this week. There's another set for a detention hearing yet this afternoon. So that's 3 additional murder cases that are coming down the pipe. So that will raise our total in Peoria County to 45 pending first-degree murder cases. So as I stated, the figures are relatively constant from quarter to quarter, and I don't expect or foresee any major changes in those statistics. And that's all I have. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Member Unger.
As always, thank you for the details, and it, I think, gives this committee some insight, and hopefully the listening public and the transparency to the public of what's going on within your office and how the service you're providing is to a majority of almost every case coming through. So again, that's just more of a highlight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for going through that and keeping us up to date on what's going on in the office.
You're welcome, and thank you.
We'll have Brian cover court services next.
Hopefully I can figure out this microphone. Good afternoon. So for my first report of 2025, I've compiled some metrics that I thought would be useful for the committee and informational. So I oversee 3 divisions in the court services, and that is adult probation, juvenile probation, and the juvenile detention center. Welcome for suggestions on different metrics or data that you guys would like to hear or would find useful. So I'll start with adult probation. Through 25, January through June 30th, we have added 2,647 adult clients on our probation caseload. That brings our total adults under our supervision, under our care, to 4,857. We have 10 different types of supervision in our adult program. That is standard probation, a high-risk unit, sex offender unit, domestic violence unit, adult redeploy, a mental health, a veterans, DUI court, drug court, and administrative caseload. Our supervision levels are determined by a risk assessment and or a court order. Our officers conduct that risk assessment at the intake, and that really guides us on our supervision plan for those individual clients. That will determine how many drug tests, home contacts, office visits, program referrals.
Could you slide the mic a little closer?
I knew I was going to fail on that. So it really determines on how often we meet with those clients, and that just sets out that case plan for that individual. Staffing for our adult probation, I'm excited to report, and I can't believe I'm actually going to say this, we had 0 turnover in the first half of 2025 in our adult division. We did hire 3. One of those was from a retirement in the end of December, and then 2 of them were grant positions that we were awarded this year in our drug court and some of our other programs. So as of June 30th, we have 0 openings in our adult division. So that was pretty exciting. Our caseloads, however, still exceed comparable jurisdictions, almost all the way across through the levels. I mean, we almost have 5,000 people supervised. So we still continue to struggle on, most of them are well over 100. Our domestic violence is our caseload, which we use a different risk assessment for, but they're all mostly highs. So that's more labor intensive and resource driven on the number of contacts that we have with those individuals. So I'll move on to juvenile probation. And again, all this data is through June 30th. We had 124 youth placed on probation. That brings our total to 638 being supervised on our caseloads. We currently have 3 different caseloads. That's a standard probation, a juvenile redeploy, and a juvenile sex offender caseload. In October-ish, we are also going to start a problem-solving court caseload through some of the grant funds that we got through Cure Violence that the board has already approved. We had to transfer that over from DOJ and the health department. So we're pretty excited about that opportunity to get that started. But that will be our 4th different type of caseloads in juveniles. The staffing issues in the juvenile division aren't so rosy. We've had a 32% turnover thus far this year. We have hired a total of 4 staff. We currently have, as of June 30th, we had 1 opening. We're in the process of filling 3 vacancies as we've had 2 resignations since June 30th. To kind of give you an idea of the turnover, 70% of our staff have less than 1 year experience in our juvenile division. 80% less than 2 years. So that is obviously a struggle with that many new people and their training requirements and things like that. Same thing with our adult division. Our juvenile division caseloads continue to be significantly higher than other jurisdictions our size. And that's really due to our juvenile crime rates, increased arrest, which most of those come from the city of Peoria. For example, we had 191 juvenile petitions filed in the first half of this year. That's a significant number. Mr. Lowe spoke about abuse and neglect, so I want to make the correlation. We often say that victims today in abuse and neglect court often become the defendants in juvenile delinquency court. That's pretty consistent across the board. That's not unique to Peoria County. But as we see those petitions files increase, we can expect to see the juvenile delinquency caseload increase as well. Moving on, not last but not least, is the Juvenile Detention Center. That is composed of secure detention, home confinement, and our reentry services. Secure detention, we had 373 referrals from law enforcement. We admitted, because we are required to screen those in a scorable instrument based on charges and history, criminal history, 223 intakes that we admitted into the detention center. Our average daily population has been 31 through June 30th. Average length of stay has dramatically increased. We used to hover around 19 to 20 days. We are at 31 days for the average length of stay. That is really due to the number of juveniles transferred to adult court has been 12. So those are 12 kids that are in our custody that are being in adult court. The average length of stay for those youth are 233 days. So that brings that up pretty significantly, pretty quick. So we have had a youth there. I think our number one youth is we're going on over 600 days. So want to point out that of those kids in secure detention, over 60% of them have a mental health diagnosis and on psychotropic medications. Unfortunately, we have become the largest mental health provider in the community. There has been a significant increase in the severity of the criminal charges that we are seeing, and that's been pretty consistent over the last couple of years. And I guess that's evident by the number of adult transfers. We've had a 12.3% increase in gun-related weapon charges. That's pretty significant. Home confinement, which is inside of JDC's budget, that is operated out of there. We have had 101 admissions to that program. Our average daily population on home detention or detention alternatives is 31. The average length of stay on that program is 35. Last year, we added another layer. It's reentry services. So it's really focused on when those kids leave, reintegrating them back to the community, whether it's school, medical, getting back in school. So one of our home detention officers has absorbed that caseload and working closely with the families, hopefully have some improved outcomes for those kids leaving JDC and back into the community. Staffing, again, is not great. It has improved a little bit. Our employee turnover rate this far is 40%, and that's a rather high number, but that's better than the 70% last year. So we're in progress, moving in the right direction. Number of hires as of June 30th is 23. Open positions as of June 30th is 8. We are in the process of hiring 11. We've extended several different offers, have scheduled start dates, but we've also had 3 resignations since June 30th. JDC is averaging 4.5 open positions a day. For 13 days this year, we only had 1 position open. 3 days this year, we were fully staffed. And then in 4 days, we had 2 positions open. I say that just to give you an understanding how quickly it can go from fully staffed down to 8 and back up. We've been successful in attracting employees, not so much on retaining them. Again, focusing on the positive, that was better than not too long ago where we couldn't hire anybody or retain them. 50% of our current staff have 1 year of experience, less than 1 year. 75% of our current staff have less than 2 years experience. That's significant because a new staff that we hire, we're required to do 120 hours of training. Obviously, that's resource intensive. It takes an average about 9 months to a year really for a new staff to start to really understand the job and be effective in that. As you are aware, at the request of this committee, we recently established a JDC work group to gain a better understanding of our operations and finances. These meetings have concluded. The presentation material has been disseminated to the board members. I know that is a lot of information, but I hope we have provided the answers. We had some pretty pointed questions, and we geared the presentation to be able to answer those questions. So I understand there's a lot of information. I want to make myself available in the future to have any further dialogue or collaboration that may come out of some of those information. I do want to say thank you. It was a learning experience for me. The collaborative process and pretty informative for me. One of the key takeaways I took from the meetings with the board members is I need to be more visible and proactive in communicating what the role of court services is. How do we operate? And more importantly, what's the value that our departments provide to the community? One last item in the report, I'm excited to state that we have reached a tentative agreement with ASME Judicial Unit on a 3-year deal. Annual increases are 4.5%, 4%, and 4%. One of the highlights, we were successful in negotiating some language that benefits us in the time off parameters that we hope that will help reduce overtime expenses. One of the reasons that we constantly hear from our staff why they're leaving is overtime or mandated overtime. Regardless how many staff we have available to work that day, we're required to have X amount of staff in the building, depending on how many kids we have. So this language hopefully was one of our number one asks, that we got some better language in this contract that allows us to manage that time off more appropriately. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions.
First of all, can you go back and give us a quick update on the status of the problem-solving courts setup?
I'm going to put Jessica on the spot. She's speak to that a little bit more. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Good afternoon. So we are excited, like Brian said, we got official notice that the process from the DOJ's and to reallocate the funds from the health department to us was approved. And in addition to that, which was most important, was an 18-month extension of the use of that funds was approved, which allows us the opportunity to start our program knowing that we have some sustainability behind it, right? So now that we have that approval, that just came in very tail end 2 weeks ago. So what we've done is on our end, we've set up a meeting with our judge, so our resident judge from the juvenile courtroom. And then we will also meet with the public defender's office, the state's attorney's office. But another thing that's quite exciting is All Rise, if you're not familiar with that, is the national conference and association that oversees problem-solving courts nationwide. They have a particular track and subject matter experts for juvenile problem-solving courts. And we are currently in collaboration with the Peoria Police Department working to have them come in and provide implementation training for our problem-solving court. So Brian had spoke that our expected timeline would be a start of October. That would allow us September to have that training team come in and train our team. In addition, we have to hire staff. So we are hopeful that we'd have an October 1 start date. That would provide us the opportunity to get training from nationwide experts, which is amazing. It's no cost to us to do that. They do it fully grant funded. So we'll have that in place. We'll have our staff in place. And so if we look back at what that looked like a while ago, I know it's been a while because we've been doing this for, we were just talking about, I think, 7 or 8 months now to get this going. We will collaborate with Trillium Place and Family Core. So Family Core will provide a case manager that will oversee the youth that are in that court. And then Trillium Place will provide 2 community engagement specialists, which will be mental health professionals, but the role will strictly be in the community. So they'll provide those services within the home and the community setting, which alleviates the barriers that we often see with our clients. Any other questions?
Sure. Any questions around the committee? I don't think so.
Great, thank you.
Following up with, Brian had mentioned the JDC task force. If anybody didn't get the slides that would like them, do let us know. I haven't heard from anyone with questions, but I would like to have them back to talk about any questions that we have that we'd like additional information on. So I will compile a list and send those over so they can do the research and have the data and come back to us next month with some answers, unless there aren't any. So if you didn't get the slideshow and want it, let me know. And if you would, send your questions over and we'll get that ball rolling. Hoping to do this, ahead of the budget meeting so that we can have those questions answered ahead of time. All right. Well, thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Great. Becky with PCAPS. Hello.
All right, good afternoon. Well, I know you have my monthly report and all of my fun data. To shed some light on that, I just want to highlight one line item we haven't talked about in a while, and it's one of our newest programs, which is the release line item that you will see in my data. And that specifically refers to trap, neuter, vaccinate, return cats. So that's just something that I wanted to highlight today as kind of a mid-year update. We are averaging about 20 trap, neuter, vaccinate, return cats a month. So those are cats that are ear-tipped and neutered and vaccinated and microchipped, rabies vaccinated specifically, and put back into either unincorporated Peoria County or a municipality whose local ordinance allows for us to do those things. And again, we're averaging about 20 a month, and higher during the busy season, lower during the slower season, and that kind of goes with the weather. Right now, we've been very responsive and taking kind of a reactive approach to trap, neuter, return. So people call us and say, hey, we have a stray cat, and we react with trap, neuter, vaccinate, return. And moving forward, and we are gearing up for, in August, taking a more proactive response to trap, neuter, vaccinate, return. And we're very excited to do kind of a mass trapping project where we're going to stake out a trailer park and in an attempt to trap about 15 cats all at once. And we're blocking our surgery schedule to do surgery for nothing but these cats. Because the data is telling us when we have large populations of cats that if you trap and return all of a good 80% of the breeding females and you get them all in one season, that's the best way to make a dent in the population. And so now we're trying to be more proactive in what we're doing with trap, neuter, vaccinate, return. And we're going to hope that that gets us a little further in with some of these large populations of cats. So we're excited for that program, and the first week of August will be our first attempt at one of these large-scale trapping operations. And while it sounds easy, acclimating cats to traps and getting that many cats to go into traps all at once, and you can imagine just transporting all those cats in traps and blocking your surgery schedule and all those things. It'll be fun. Hopefully, with nothing else, we'll get some good pictures and we'll tell a good story, and we'll get some surgeries done that day. But that's just a quick update that I wanted to give you. And trap, neuter operations are going well otherwise, even as a reactive approach. Last year, our euthanasia did decrease 10% in the animal shelter for the cat population, just with the addition of trap, neuter, return. So our efforts are definitely helping to reduce euthanasia in the animal shelter, which was the goal of this program all along. And so our efforts are definitely helping. So happy to answer any questions about the report or anything else for that matter.
Any questions for Becky on informational items? All right. We'll try to move on to our resolutions. Can I get a motion for the Whitney Foundation donation? Danny and Rob, thank you. Right.
Okay, so sadly in April, Dr. Whitney passed away. As a part of that, the Whitney Foundation generously wrote us a $2,000 check from their foundation in memory of Dr. Whitney. We would like to use that donation to help expand our foster program. The foster program currently really helps to keep those little bottle babies out of the shelter, specifically kittens and puppies. They have to be 8 weeks old, 2 pounds, and spayed or neutered before they go home. And the shelter is really no environment for them. Animals are coming off the street and they're exposed to all kinds of things, and animals that are underweight and underage have weakened little immune systems, and being in the shelter is just not a great environment for them. So if we can get them out into foster homes, it's the best place that they can be. And in order to attract foster homes, we like to give them the supplies to get the job done. If we make it inexpensive and easy, we hope that we can attract more foster homes. So if we can provide them with heating pads and bottles and kitten milk replacer and specialty kitten foods and eye medications and all the things that you probably wouldn't have on your shelf if you're not a kitten person, then that makes the job a little bit easier, and those are the things that we'd like to spend this donation on. It would be able to develop our foster program to the tune of about 15 to 20 more foster homes.
So as Scott noted earlier, this would be recognizing the revenue and authorizing the expense. Any questions for Becky on the grant? All right, please vote. All in favor, thank you. We'll move on to your ASPCA grant. Oh, I do need a motion. Danny and Rob, thank you.
All right, this one is super exciting. All right, so PCAPS was chosen to be a part of the Rescue Effect campaign. ASPCA has a national campaign called the Rescue Effect. I would suspect you are going to start to see this thing everywhere, probably on our TV very soon. The Rescue Effect is ASPCA's way of talking about the positive chain of events that happen when just one person touches a shelter, whether you adopt or even just engage with your shelter. If you share a social media post, the ripple effect that has can really be very effective in moving animals out of the shelter. It can be very, very engaging for the effects that it has on animals in a shelter. They're putting their money where their mouth is on this thing. And so they're giving donations to animals across the country, animal shelters across the country, to really prove this. So as a part of this message, they've asked that we host several fee-waived adoption events. So we will do that. We will have a fee-waived adoption event at the end of the month in August, September, and October. They will be 1 week long. And the ASPCA part of this grant will go towards we'll collect the revenue from this grant instead of collecting the revenue from the adopters, which is wonderful. Another part of this grant, as they've allowed us to use it within the scope of that, will help us build a program that I have had my eye on for many years and have been looking for funding for, and I am super excited for, which is a Finder to Foster program. So there has been so much talk, and so many other communities are having very much success with Finder to Foster. And if you think about this, if you lose your own pet, and you lose your dog or you lose your cat, the first thing you do is not get in your car and drive to the animal shelter. The first thing you do is you walk around your neighborhood and you look for your pet, right? That's what you do. And so when you walk around your neighborhood and you look for your pet, if we keep the lost animals in the neighborhood that they're lost, there's a lot more likelihood that they're going to be found. And so again, if we can give the people the supplies, the tools, the signage, can we put a yard sign in somebody's yard, similar to a political sign that says there is a lost pet was found here, and you plug a sign in their yard, something of that nature. Let's give them the tools. We put a microchip scanner in a neighborhood where everyone knows where it is. We give the community the tools to engage in lost pet recovery. I'm really excited to engage communities in lost pet recovery. And this is something I'm super passionate about and can't wait to share with more and more people. We have a lot of lost pet warriors out there now. Lost Dogs of Illinois is a Facebook page that does great things for us. And there is a whole community of people that are doing lost and found pet recovery, all behind the scenes. And we don't even know they're there. They're helping animals get home every day. It's amazing. But this just engages more and more people. It allows us to give them some of the supplies to do that. And so I'm really excited that this grant will allow us to do that. And then another portion of this grant just allows us any supplies that we need to prepare animals for adoption. So medical supplies, microchips, heartworm tests, flea and tick supplies, anything we need. The ASPCA says use the grant to prepare animals for adoption. So it's threefold, really. You'll see all of the expenditure, all of the funds did not get transferred into expenditures. That's because $8,000 will be used to capture fee waived, revenue items from fee waived adoptions, and then the rest of the money will be expenditure items associated with Finder to Foster and associated with preparing animals for adoption. So happy to answer any questions. I'm super excited about these programs.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, please vote. All right, ayes have it. Thank you, Becky. Can I get a motion on the approval of the COLA for the sheriff, Danny and Linda? Thank you. Can you go over that for us?
Sure thing, Madam Chair. Oops. Sure thing, Madam Chair. So under state statute, the General Assembly through the annual state budget process sets the salary for state's attorneys and any cost of living adjustments that are made. Statute also says that the sheriff shall be paid at least 80% of the state's attorney's compensation. As part of the state budget process, there is a 6.1% cost of living adjustment for the state's attorney. So this resolution is to make that same cost of living adjustment to the sheriff's salary. We don't bring the state's attorney's adjustment forward because it's set in statute and it's exactly what it is. We bring the sheriff's before you because you do have flexibility. You could always give the sheriff more than the 80%. That is the minimum required by statute. This will also increase the reimbursement that we receive from the state. It goes from, the reimbursement goes from $9,186 and change to $9,746 and change per month. So it works out to be roughly 2/3, I think, of the salary that's reimbursed. Should you approve the resolution both today and at the board meeting in August, the sheriff's salary for the year starting July 1 of this year through June 30 of next year will be $175,460.50. Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Steve.
Have we done any comparables? Because we do comparables for other salaries and that. Just have you done comparables for this? As you stated, this is the minimum, but I want to be fair and make sure that we're making a good decision for whatever the amount should be.
Sure. Back when the board, before the state law was changed and the board set the sheriff's salary, our sheriff was compensated at a pretty high level to our peers geographically, so in similar sized counties in central Illinois. We never looked at a fair comparable as the large collar counties up north, just because of their size and their population. But if you looked at Rock Island, Champaign, Tazewell, McLean, Sangamon, our elected officials were usually higher than those peer counties in central Illinois. Since the state law changed, and now the compensation is a percentage of the state's attorney's salary, that is higher than what we paid you set previously when you were able to set it. But we've not done any analysis to compare where the sheriff is in relationship to other counties.
I think the last analysis we had was when Rob and Linda, didn't you guys go through and get comparisons on all the electeds? But that's been a number of years ago. Okay.
And I would assume, as you stated accurately, since this new policy went into place, I'd assume the other comparable counties and the other comparable state's attorneys' salaries, which are set by the state, have been adjusted, and so those sheriffs and those counties will have received a similar type of a adjustment up. So, I mean, we'd only really be looking at is anybody doing more than the minimum. Would be kind of the valuation, I think, that would be kind of a fair assessment, assuming the state's attorney's salary is based on population and county size and workload, whatever the data set is.
Correct, Mr. Wicker. We've because the state's attorneys is set specifically by the General Assembly through the annual state budgeting process. We've never done an analysis of that position. Although I am very keenly aware of Jerry Brady during his tenure was always keen to remind me that the General Assembly during his tenure as state's attorney never did approve a cost of living adjustment for the state's attorneys. So only after Jody became state's attorney did we start to see cost of living adjustments for state's attorneys through the state budgeting process. That kind of point is being, since we've done the research, we don't even know if every state's attorney is paid the exact same, or is it similar to how the county engineer program is structured, and there's a formula that is used for the county engineer salary reimbursement, setting the salary and then the salary reimbursement, or is it just a flat, every state's attorney is making the exact same? So we don't even have that data point because we've never had a reason to research it. And I think that would then, if we had that data point, that would then drive, what a way to compare what other counties are doing with their sheriffs. I'm not aware of any county going above and beyond the 80%, but we also haven't done that research. But nothing's come across my desk or anything to indicate otherwise.
And this resolution did come from the sheriff's office. Did you want to add something in here?
No, sorry, I was just going to speak on it, but Scott did great.
Okay. right. Well, thank you.
Sorry about that, Ashley. You could have done it perfectly fine as well.
It's okay.
Didn't realize you were here. Any other questions on the approval of this? All right, please vote. All ayes, thank you. We'll move on. Can I get a motion for the Medicaid-assisted treatment, Medicaid-assisted recovery-oriented environment discretionary grant? It's a mouthful. Danny and Rob, thank you. All right.
Good afternoon. Recently, we were awarded a grant through SAMHSA for $10,000. The purpose of the grant is to create a pod that is specified for facilitating a great environment for recovery. In the Peoria County Sheriff's Office, the majority of our detainees that are in our recovery program are females. So the goal would be to start with a female pod J3 and convert it to a recovery pod. The $10,000 would be utilized to purchase educational materials and commodity supplies, things that will make the area just more suitable for them for that program. And then the request would be to appropriate the $10,000 revenue into this year's budget as well as the expense.
Any questions? Well, thank you. It's easy enough. Please vote. Ayes have it. Thank you. Any discussion? Public comment? Or miscellaneous? All right, adjourned.